Hello. To start with, I'm the guy who asks you to please turn your cell phones off so there's no dinging right in the middle of things. Wow, that's bright. Hi, everybody. Pardon me if I'm not good on the eye contact today. The sun is right there, so I'll be looking down. My name is Doug Norton. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics here at Villanova, as well as the Secretary-Treasurer of our Phi Beta Kappa chapter. Welcome to the ceremony celebrating our 36th year of inducting new members into the Sigma of Pennsylvania chapter in the 245th anniversary year of Phi Beta Kappa. Please join with me in a brief prayer of invocation. Infinite God, we finite creatures invoke your presence in this finite space. Timeless God, we invoke your presence in this moment, today. God of all time and space, we invoke your presence here and now, not because you are not already here and now, but so that we may attune ourselves to that holy presence, fold that presence into all that we do here today, even as you enfold us each day in your loving care. God of wisdom and beyond all knowing, bless us today as we honor and celebrate these our cherished students. May their love of learning continue to drive them from a thirst for knowledge through a restless seeking of understanding to ultimately catch a glimpse of true wisdom. May we all find that a love of wisdom instills in us the wisdom to love, and that love and wisdom burning in our hearts and minds are at the helm as we and the world become what we are not yet. Amen. I now invite Professor Adele Lyndon Meyer to the podium to provide an official welcome. Dr. Lyndon Meyer is Professor of History, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences of Villanova University, and a former president of our Phi Beta Kappa chapter. Dean Lyndon Meyer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Norton, and for that especially beautiful prayer on such a happy occasion. I'd first like to talk to those whom I cannot see, but I know who are here, the family and the friends and supporters of these outstanding students. Congratulations, family and friends. Look what you've accomplished. Your sons and daughters elected to the nation's oldest, most prestigious academic honor society. This, and I will deny that I said this, if you quote me, this is my favorite part of commencement every year, is welcoming and congratulating the newly elected members of Phi Beta Kappa. You make us so proud. You exemplify and embody the values of a Villanova liberal arts education. We have scrutinized your transcripts, your records, the recommendations that your faculty sent on your behalf, and this year especially, the members of the selection committee and I were dumbfounded by your excellence, by your originality, your creativity, your breadth, as well as depth of intellect. Congratulations. Bear this honor lightly, but hold it close. And I hope that it is one of many successes in your future. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dean Lyndon Meyer. I next present to you the President and Vice President of our chapter, who will introduce the ceremony, the candidates, and the Pledge of Honor. Dr. Lynn Hartnett is Associate Professor of History and Director of the Graduate Program in History here at Villanova University. She currently serves as our chapter president. Ask her about revolutions, Russia, or refugees. Dr. Lauren Showett is Professor of English at Villanova University, as well as Vice President of our chapter. Ask her about Milton or Shakespeare, media, or the interface. Dr. Hartnett.
Ooh. Thank you, Dr. Norton. Fellow members of Phi Beta Kappa, parents, and guests watching via live stream, I would like to welcome you to this ceremony and to thank all of you for attending. We are grateful to the faculty members of Phi Beta Kappa who made this happen, to Father Peter Donahue, President of Villanova University, Dean Adele Lyndon Meyer, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, Father Cale Ellis, Assistant to the President and Dean Emeritus, College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and to our speaker, Dr. Catherine Wilson, Associate Professor of Public Administration. Before I thank one last group of individuals, I want to tell you a little bit about the stars of our ceremony today, the new members of Phi Beta Kappa. The students who are invited into Phi Beta Kappa are the most outstanding liberal arts and sciences students at the university. Students do not apply for membership. Instead, the members of Phi Beta Kappa review their transcripts and solicit recommendations from your faculty members. We spend a long afternoon, and this year it was longer than ever, as Dean Lyndon Meyer mentioned, finally selecting our candidates. I wish I could tell all of you how exceptional this group of students are. I wish I could communicate to you the excitement that we felt as we got to know a little bit more about them as we looked at their files. I also wish I could stand here and tell you all the wonderful things that they have in their future as they leave our beautiful campus. But if I did that, we would be here all night, and so I don't think anyone wants me to do that. We, as faculty members, are enormously proud of their accomplishments. But I know that those watching at home must be even more so. And I know that you probably wish, I'm sure you wish, that you were here in person with us today. But I know that even from a distance, your heart must swell with pride for these wonderful individuals that you have raised and watched blossom. We are so grateful that you sent your sons and daughters to us. We have learned a great deal from them, and we know that they will bring a great deal of honor and credit to our institution. So thank you. And now, let me turn to the formal part of our ceremony. We are assembled today for the purpose of receiving into the membership of our society certain persons who, having been duly elected by this chapter, desire to be admitted into its privileges and opportunities. As you will see, most of our students who are admitted during the second semester of their senior year. A few students, however, are so outstanding that they were admitted as juniors. Now, I would like to invite our chapter's Vice President, Dr. Lauren Showett, to join me at the podium. Dr. Showett, whom have you assembled before us today?
A number of candidates who've been invited to join our venerable society and are now prepared for initiation.
And do you have reason to believe that they meet the high academic and moral standards of our society?
I do.
Then we consider them for initiation. At this point, I'd like to invite Dr. Norton back to the podium.
Candidates, please rise. In accordance with the rules of the Sigma of Pennsylvania chapter of Phi Beta Kappa, and in consequence of your intellectual and moral character, supported by your record of high attainment at Villanova University, you have been selected as worthy of becoming members of Phi Beta Kappa. Your names have been submitted to the scrutiny of the constitutional electors of the Sigma chapter, and you have met with their approval. You have been formally notified of your election, and by your presence here, you signify your desire to be enrolled as members of this ancient and honorable society. By the rules of this chapter, each initiate must personally pledge allegiance to the society and sign the roll book. In addition, I am instructed to administer the following promise. Do you solemnly promise that you will be true and faithful to this society, that you will obey the laws thereof, and that in the election of members you will have paramount regard for moral character and scholarly attainment? If you agree, please respond together, I do so promise. I do so promise. Thank you. You may be seated. At this point, our Vice President, Dr. Lauren Showett, will call the names of the initiates. As you hear your name called, please come forward. And Father Peter, we will ask you to join us as well at the table.
We good? Amanda Atkinson. Natalie Bach. Erin Bogaki. Christopher Braganza. Crystal Brow. Catherine Brennan. Lillian Boai. Robert Bulka. Megan Burke. Declan Carolan. Michelle Charles. Kathleen Connor. Juliana Cosenza. Emily Cox. Michael Creighton. Juliana Cresty. Lana Davidoff. Samantha DiCarlo. Yaren Doe. Andrew Donofrio. Riley Eisenhart. Michelle Ferrer. Catherine Garmer. Abigail Gessman. Emily Gelormino. Corinne Gillenwater. Amira Guy. Connor Hayes. McKenna Higgins. Chloe Hilson. Rayan Jarzak. Tyler Klein. Corey Kuipers. Patrick Labella. Grace Lang. Annalise Laughlin. Elizabeth Lyons. Michael Mechanic. Abramo Manfredonia. Alexandra Marassa. Julia Mills. Mackenzie Mix. Caitlin Naughton. Derek Nolan. Casey O'Donnell. Caitlin O'Donnell. Francis Achman. Zachary Ornstein. Christian Ostrowski. Kayla Panicucci. Shivani Patel. Alexandra Penzi. Michelle Philippi. Hannah Perosi. Matthew Planchin. Allison Porzio. Kaylee Purcell. Jack Riedel. Lauren Sage. Jesse Sardina. Stephen Scheidley. Victoria Schmidt. Alexa Schoneborn. Jacqueline Solomon. Shuyu Su. Madeline Sullivan. Lauren Sum. Brian Swope. James Terhune. Shiyu Cao. Madeline Van Brunt. Brooke Wichterman. Sarah Week. Nicholas Waltman. Philip Yang. Bernard Zitzowitz. And now we will call those who have been selected as juniors. Anthony Berna. Aaron Levan. Mackenzie O'Reilly. Sophia Leone. Phi Beta Kappa was founded during the American Revolution in 1776 by 5 students at the College of William and Mary in Virginia. For almost 2.5 centuries, the society has embraced the principles of freedom of inquiry, liberty of thought, and freedom of expression. Although smartphones have replaced the quill pens on Phi Beta Kappa's distinctive gold key, these ideas still lay the foundations of personal freedom, scientific inquiry, liberty of conscience, and creative endeavor. The organization was created as a secret society so that its founders would have the freedom to discuss any topic they chose. This might seem odd to us now, but in 1776, the political and cultural controversies of the American Revolution made for a context where freedom of expression could be or could feel dangerous. Phi Beta Kappa was the first society to have a Greek letter name, and it introduced the essential characteristics later adopted by other societies of its kind: an oath of secrecy, a badge, mottos in Greek and Latin, a code of laws, an elaborate form of initiation, a seal, and a special hand clasp. Although the original society at William and Mary lasted only 4 years, ending when the approach of the British Army forced the college to close, it had already admitted 50 members, held 77 meetings, and granted charters for new chapters at Yale and Harvard. These 2 New England chapters preserved the essential qualities of the Virginia Society. Shortly before the end of each academic year, the graduating members selected a small group of student leaders from the rising senior class to carry on the organization. The requirement for secrecy was dropped in the mid-19th century. Now, election to Phi Beta Kappa is publicly celebrated, as we are doing right now, rather than concealed. Today, there are 290 chapters of Phi Beta Kappa, but it is still highly selective, as you've heard from Dean Lyndon Meyer and Dr. Hartnett. There are chapters at only about 10% of the nation's institutions of higher learning, and only about 1 college senior in 100 nationwide is invited to join. Phi Beta Kappa elects members who have demonstrated intellectual integrity, appreciation for a wide range of views, and a broad range of academic interests. Among the many notable members are current Supreme Court Justices Sonia Sotomayor and John Roberts, W.E.B. Du Bois, former U.S. Congressional Representative Elijah Cummings, and U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. 17 U.S. presidents and 42 current and former U.S. Supreme Court justices have been members of Phi Beta Kappa. The national standards of Phi Beta Kappa reflect the highest ideals of liberal education, education that is concerned with values as well as facts, and with wisdom as well as knowledge, education that seeks freedom from ignorance, alienation, and inhumanity, education that values intellectual integrity over expedience and breadth of scholarly achievement over specialized expertise. Since its installation in 1986, the Villanova chapter has inducted some 40 to 80 students into Phi Beta Kappa every year. Inductees constitute only approximately 5% of each graduating class, only a fraction of those who meet the formal qualifications. At Villanova, our distinctive charter stipulates that from the already select number of students with eligible GPAs, we consider evidence of curiosity, intellectual risk-taking, exploration, and academic leadership. You have been elected because you've chosen your courses adventurously. You've impressed your teachers with ways you bring classmates with you into your academic passions because your work excels. With this induction, you join a society that counts among its members leaders in the arts, business, politics, research, athletics, and human services, all people committed to lifelong pursuit of the broad and deep learning that is the hallmark of a liberal arts education. Congratulations and welcome.
We built those delays in so you could catch your breath in between the different portions. I meant to walk up slowly. Sorry. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Professor Catherine E. Wilson, Associate Professor and Chair of the Department of Public Administration at Villanova University. Ask her about, well, she'll tell you herself. Dr. Wilson.
Good evening, Father Peter, Dean Lyndon Meyer, Father Ellis, Villanova faculty and members of the Phi Beta Kappa Committee, 2021 inductees of the Sigma of Pennsylvania chapter of Phi Beta Kappa at Villanova University, as well as their family and friends who are joining us virtually. As a Villanova alumna and member of Phi Beta Kappa, it is my distinct honor to speak with you tonight on how the future of the nonprofit sector depends on its leadership. These remarks are based upon 2 podcasts that I created for my graduate effective nonprofit management course. This evening, I'd like us all to reflect on how our lives have been touched one way or another by nonprofit organizations. This may include attending a nonprofit elementary, middle, or high school, graduating from a nonprofit college or university, visiting a museum or participating in cultural events, receiving medical care from a nonprofit hospital, attending a nonprofit chamber of commerce gathering, or volunteering for a community development organization, or playing on a Little League team. How have these experiences shaped you and your lives? What are some of the things you have learned from these experiences? How has your involvement with nonprofit organizations broadened and enhanced your perspective on community life? As reported by the independent sector, there are 1.6 million nonprofit organizations registered with the Internal Revenue Service. And these organizations employ roughly 10% of the nation's workforce. This makes the nonprofit sector the 3rd largest workforce after retail and marketing in the United States. In this COVID-19 era, I would be remiss in not mentioning the direct impact nonprofits have made in the United States and abroad as we faced and continue to face this pandemic together. This included advocating for increased personal protective equipment for healthcare workers at the height of the COVID crisis, turning shuttered restaurants into nonprofit food pantries and grocery stores to serve neighbors in need, providing necessary support to grieving families who lost their loved ones to the virus, aiding in vaccine distribution and administration, particularly for minority and vulnerable populations, retooling operations to aid frontline workers and victims of domestic violence, moving services, programming, and fundraising events to a virtual platform, and joining in coalitions to raise funding for hard-hit communities, organizations, and businesses. These targeted responses to COVID were occurring at a time when nonprofits were facing their own struggles. Just 2 months ago, the Associated Press reported that over 1/3 of nonprofit organizations were at risk of closure within 2 years due to financial distress. Most affected have been nonprofits in the arts and culture sector due to the inability to meet in person for performances. While we must treat this data with the utmost seriousness, I'd like to take this time to suggest that crises can bring to light unforeseen possibilities regarding the future of the nonprofit sector. There are reasons for having renewed confidence in nonprofit organizations, but this depends on the insight and conviction of nonprofit leadership. As students in Villanova's College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and Phi Beta Kappa inductees, you are uniquely situated to assume this leadership in the nonprofit sector due to the college's emphasis on encouraging creativity and innovation through a dynamic, integrated curriculum, and its focus on developing critical thinkers, strong communicators, and ethical leaders. Your leadership in nonprofit organizations could help advance the creation of social value, which scholar David Renz argues is the sector's only bottom line. Additionally, your leadership could aid in infusing the sector with cutting-edge insights to enable organizations to address problems through strategic reflection and a multidimensional lens. I'd like to propose 3 ways that nonprofit leaders can envision a bright and entrepreneurial future for the nonprofit sector. They can build avenues for community attachment, engage in risk-taking and experimentation, and advance the nonprofit's central mission and purpose through a robust organizational culture. Let's start with avenues for community attachment. A 2020 independent sector survey of 3,000 American adults found that individuals believe that everyday people are more well-positioned to address the social issues of the day as opposed to government, nonprofits, and businesses. Let's put this data into some perspective. 36% of those surveyed voiced support for everyday people in responding to societal challenges, which is almost 2 times greater than support for government, 3 times greater than support for nonprofits, and over 7 times greater than support for businesses. This turn inward should come as no surprise to those of us who are well acquainted with the individualism that is constitutive of American public life. While the authors of the book Lead Yourself First point out that solitude is in fact essential to leadership for the kind of interior reflection and discipline it provides, Raymond Kethledge and Michael Irwin also assert that what they refer to as leadership solitude ultimately leads to decisive action. So what are nonprofit leaders to do when faced with individuals who trust everyday people to address the country's social challenges more than public, private, and nonprofit organizations? Nonprofit leadership needs to build meaningful avenues for community attachment. In a society where people are hyper-connected virtually, but not face-to-face, nonprofit leaders could brainstorm on how best to create intimate gatherings, whether in person or remotely, that can serve as appropriate antidotes to the kind of isolation so many Americans experience on a daily basis. These gatherings could reinforce and rebuild social identity by connecting individuals to causes, campaigns, and experiences of great significance. The post-COVID-19 era has demonstrated the ingenuity of nonprofit organizations to transform their in-person events into noteworthy digital experiences, whether they are virtual happy hours, trivia nights, or athletic competitions. This leads to my second point. Nonprofit leaders need to set aside time to engage in risk-taking and experimentation. In comparison with their for-profit counterparts, nonprofit organizations regularly assume a survival posture, which forces them to continually monitor whether they have sufficient cash flow just to keep operations going. Obviously, this posture is much more heightened during a crisis like COVID-19. But what if nonprofit leaders instead chose to adopt a growth mindset which charted a clear vision for the future? Risk-taking and experimentation can take many forms. It could mean considering different revenue streams, including fees for services, researching the advantages of corporate sponsorships, or exploring public-private partnerships such as social impact bonds, also known as pay-for-success initiatives. It might also involve cultivating a relationship with a celebrity, or what authors Leslie Crutchfield and Heather McLeod Grant call an evangelist, to broadcast the purpose for which the organization exists to a larger audience. Interestingly, the 2020 Independent Sector Survey found that support or endorsement from a public figure was considered the top hidden motivator mentioned by American adults in increasing their trust in nonprofit organizations. Third, nonprofit leadership needs to create a strong organizational culture that enriches the central mission and purpose of the nonprofit. Nonprofit leaders must be adroit in having an inside and outside game at their organizations. Not only must leaders ensure that the mission is being accomplished, whether that means producing a noteworthy artistic performance, serving vulnerable populations, or providing a high-quality academic experience, but they must also dedicate themselves to cultivating strong teams through mentoring and professional development of their staff. A clear articulation of the organization's mission and purpose, which the Independent Sector Survey reports, is one of the key drivers for building trust. Should also be accompanied by investment in the very people within the organization who work to advance that mission. It is worth noting that a strong organizational culture is dependent on the effective management of people, resources, and the nonprofit's reputation. In the end, a bright and entrepreneurial future for the nonprofit sector depends on caring and competent leaders who are willing to take courageous steps to envision new horizons for their organizations. As deeply engaged students and Phi Beta Kappa inductees, you have been active participants in your learning, wrestling with and wondering at new and age-old intellectual traditions in your philosophy, ACS, theology, and ethics courses, appreciating the beauty of the fine arts, examining historical text, and honing your analytical thinking skills in courses in the natural and social sciences, valuing diverse cultures and traditions in your coursework and proficiency in a foreign language. By the way, what I just mentioned is the core curriculum in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. This, alongside the discipline in which you have chosen to major, has equipped you with a range of important skills and competencies to creatively address some of our greatest social, economic, and political challenges, and to do so with a focus on the common good. Take what you have learned from living out Villanova's Caritas commitment, Community First, this past year, and continue to live as responsible and involved citizens in your neighborhoods, communities, and workplaces, and even as leaders, volunteers, and board members of nonprofit organizations. To restate, creating a strong organizational culture in the nonprofit sector depends on the effective management of people, resources, and reputation. For nonprofits, reputation is their currency, and public trust is how that currency is accumulated. Nonprofits today, as they have been in the past, are some of the most important vehicles for building community in our society. As individuals continue to take part in community building activities, even those that are virtual in nature, to address some of society's greatest challenges, let us ensure that these experiences are ones that serve to increase public trust in the sector. Let us also commit ourselves to cultivating a nonprofit leadership pipeline that is both dedicated and accountable to the sector's charitable work. And finally, let us create opportunities for leaders to take risks, experiment, and yes, even make mistakes, so that nonprofits can stay agile and relevant to the times. The future of our nonprofit sector depends on it. Congratulations to all of the 2021 Phi Beta Kappa inductees.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Now our president will administer the final charge to the initiates. Will the inductees please rise?
By election of the chapter and by your assent to its pledge and the placing of your signature on its book, the Society's requirements for initiation are fully satisfied. I therefore, in the presence of these members of the Society, declare you members of the Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Kappa in the state of Pennsylvania, authorized to wear its key as a badge and to participate in meetings. Congratulations. Please be seated. Before I ask Dr. Norton to come back up, I just want to say a quick thank you to Dr. Kevin Mimbiol, who was my immediate predecessor as president of Phi Beta Kappa, who was doing some of the heavy lifting, getting your certificates ready. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, Dr. Mimbiol. And because this is my last year as Phi Beta Kappa chapter president, I just want to ask your indulgence for one moment while I just share a few words before I leave the stage. You may have heard about a book published years ago, I guess now. It was called Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Well, I want to adapt that a little bit to just be everything I need to know in life I learned at Villanova. So, as students in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, hopefully you've learned by now how important it is to read. So I ask you to keep that habit throughout your life. And as you do, don't be afraid to get swept away by the beauty of literature, but always remember to keep a critical mind and eye and check your sources. In your labs and math courses here at Villanova, you learned that there is no such thing as a simple solution. That's the norm in life too. Life is complex. So be open to look for opportunities and answers in unexpected places. If you were lucky enough to take a theater course while at Villanova, take the lessons you learned there to heart. Always have the confidence to take center stage and share your voice. But always remember to take care to share the spotlight with your friends and coworkers. Also remember what it was like walking around our beautiful campus. And take the time as you move forward to always take in your surroundings. And you know that at Villanova we're known for holding doors open, right? So just always remember how much better it feels to hold a door open for someone, to let it shut behind you. You're about to start a new chapter in your life, and it will be different from what's come before. But please remember, if every chapter of a book was just like the one that came before it, we'd never have any impulse to keep turning the page. So, congratulations, Phi Beta Kappa members, class of 2021.
We're on the home stretch here. In just a moment, Father Cale Ellis, who's assistant to the president, Dean Emeritus of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and a longtime friend of and advocate for this chapter, will have some comments for our new members. We appreciate very much that all of you are able to attend this induction ceremony, whether in this room, watching the live stream, or seeing the recording at a later time. Again, I want to thank you all for attending and ask once more for you all to give yourselves a huge round of applause to celebrate the accomplishments of these outstanding students. That's you. Good job. And now Father Ellis will, if you'll come to give some closing comments, and I will return briefly after Father Ellis has finished. Father Ellis.
Thank you very much, Dr. Norton. I'm not giving closing comments, I'm giving the final prayer. So we will, I couldn't begin to compete with all the comments that you've already had anyway, so that's great. And thank you all for indulging me and for inviting me to this great event. So let us place ourselves in the presence of God. And loving God, we give you thanks for the blessings of one another and for this gathering that celebrates the achievements of the students who have been inducted into Phi Beta Kappa in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. We give you thanks for their parents who are joining us virtually, and especially their mothers, whom we honor tomorrow on Mother's Day, and for their families and friends who have loved and nurtured them in the ways of learning, and who have sustained them in their studies and in all their endeavors. We recognize that the gifts of discernment and knowledge and the power of freedom and the work of love you have given them are your invitation for them to share in the completion of your creation. And lastly, we ask especially that each of us may continue to learn and to be inspired by the words of our university patron, St. Thomas of Villanova, who reminded us, "For you do not learn for yourself, nor do you become wise for yourself alone, but for all those whom your skills and knowledge can benefit." And for this we pray, amen.
I actually had closing prayer and edited it at the last minute. I'm not sure why. That is what we wanted. Thank you, Father Ellis. Please excuse me if I exercise my MC prerogative to send you all on your way with some charges for our honorees. It's dangerous to give Doug the mic, I know. My first charge is to connect with Phi Beta Kappa. The website pbk.org presents a wealth of information about the organization and its role as an advocate for the essential value of the liberal arts and sciences in contemporary society. There are almost 50 Phi Beta Kappa alumni associations around the country, including the local Delaware Valley chapter, the Delaware Valley Association, Each provides opportunities for service, socializing, and scholarly stimulation. Phi Beta Kappa also publishes the award-winning magazine of literature and ideas, The American Scholar. Here from the current issue is an excerpt from a poem whose topic might ring a bell, Zoom Rooms by Mary Jo Salter. Followers and friends and participants, gallery view, which speaker view supplants, meeting attendants who for now are mute, or worse, unmute, a word I might dispute, even exists, whether verb or adjective. Is this life? Is this how you want to live? Nose scratches broadcast, thoughts shrunk to an icon or two, clap, thumbs up. And if you leave your mic on while others talk, your faintest sighing framed in gold light like a vanity mirror. Bookcase prop and real or fake bouquet behind you, well-dressed only to the waist, as if in a casket, top half on display. Someday soon, the few corporeal beings we dare see, grocery clerks and nurses, EMT drivers, the essential Amazon delivery guys who ring the bell and run, the letter carriers who bear their worry as to what spiky cells homebodies carry, will be everyone. Reader, you took the vaccine, you threw away your masks, you're hugging, you're kissing. As for your avatar, is that you missing your mirror image mirage? Have you found yourself less patient now that there's more sound? Loud diners, children, and nowhere a mute button. So much else from the old days you've forgotten and might sacrifice, if that were possible. People, basically, and meeting for all. So my second charge for you is to connect with other people. Do not sacrifice people to stay in the Zoom times we have come to know. My third charge, stay connected with us here. Just as you learned from us, we have learned from you. We want to know what's next for you. You never call, you never write. Don't be that person. We've learned how to have common experiences while maintaining social distance. So now, be intentional about having post-isolation, disparate experiences at genuine distances while nurturing the bonds developed pandemic style. My fourth charge, connect with yourself. You're simultaneously transitioning from both some level of pandemic shutdown and from that strange alternative to the real world that is college life. Be self-aware and practice self-care as you doubly transition. Finally, you say, connect with the world. No truth without some unity and love mixed in. No love of learning or love of wisdom without the guide of life, direction, purpose, connection. Flaming hearts and minds, dare I say it one more time, igniting change. Both you and the world with which you connect become what you are not yet. Thank you for coming today, everyone.